Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Dan's at-home update on this second day of November. Now, I'm not going to say anything. I've always tried very hard over the course of more than 40 years of being a journalist and being on television and writing and everything else. And again, it goes back to what I've always said. My political intentions are my own. I just don't think that it's my business, and I really don't understand this. When people ask other people, how are you going to vote? Who are you voting for? My inclination is to say, none of your business. My inclination is to say, who I vote for is for me to know and not necessarily for me to share with you. That's why there are curtains, or nowadays, that's why there are booths that you go into. Otherwise, just check it off and hold it up and let everybody see it. But that's not my nature. My nature is it's mine. And I don't want it to get in the way of other things, and it interferes, let's be honest. In this day and age in which we live now, conversations are sometimes ended just based purely on somebody's political point of view. Because you have to tell somebody else, what you think politically, then the other person has to have an opposing view. And then pretty soon you can't talk to each other anymore because you have differing political values. It was, I want to believe, and maybe as we get older, we distort our memory somewhat, but I want to believe when I was younger, when I was a young man and my dad was showing me the whole idea of elections, that there was still the civility among people, even if somebody supported Nixon and somebody supported Kennedy, they could still be friends and they could still work together, and they didn't have to be angry at each other because they weren't on the same page. And I believe that people can still coexist, but it seems to be harder and harder. And the closer we get to this general election, the more people seem to feel the need to speak out. And it happens everywhere. It happens here. I've already noticed in the comments this morning. It's in the comment section here. To me, it's one of those things that, if you want to put a sign in the yard, that's okay. But to have to feel like you have to ask people, how are you voting? To me, the question is not, who are you voting for? The question is, are you voting? Right? And then that person votes on who they feel most comfortable with, or they feel is the most aligned with their thinking. Pretty simple, but it's never simple. Again, good morning, everybody. Just a first thought as we get things going this morning. Once again, I'm Dan Gresham. This is my house, or at least a small part of it. It is my studio where I work out of when I'm at home. And when I say work out of, that means a variety of different things. It can be working on work, or it can be working on enjoyable things like painting or reading or editing video, something like that. That all goes on inside this room. But of course, more importantly, the at-home update goes on in this room as well. Do me a favor, if you're live streaming with us this morning and you're on board, just shoot us a comment. Tell us what's going on. Again, some folks already have this morning. Mary Wofford is, let me get this out of the way and we'll be able to see that. Mary Wofford says, good morning. Nate's up with us this morning. Darlene Parfait is here. Michael is here this morning. Again, see, there you go. Michael expressing his political interest this morning. Brenda, good morning to you. And if we're going to have one, obviously, you got to have the other, right? Sherry Bartlett, at least on this show, we're going to do both. Tanya Castillo, good morning to you as well. Hi, Jess, over in Mauriceville this morning. Jay is here this morning, and so is Terry. Lee Odom is here this morning from Kirbyville. Bob is here. Good morning to you, sir. Timothy is also checking in this morning. Hi there, Ravi Thompson, and also Tommy. Good morning, or Tammy, I should say. Good morning to you. I need to put my glasses on as usual. Jeannie, good morning from Buna, and the list goes on. And again, we loved hearing from you. Want to know where it's going on. Want to know what's on your mind this morning. You feel free to just pop a comment just like you would any other Facebook post. And of course, if you'd like to give us a like, we always appreciate that. If you're on the other side, you're like, this stinks, don't like it, then put up the angry emoji if you want to. But it's just knowing that you were here and that you spent a couple of minutes with us. And again, it is appreciated. Whether you come down on the same side or disagree with what we have to say, doesn't bother me one way or the other. I'd prefer that we do it civilly, right, than to come to blows about it. All right, a couple of things I want to talk about this morning we need to throw out there. First of all, it is T-minus, 24 hours and counting to the general election. So encourage those people that you know, if they did not vote early, and lots of people did, almost 2/3 of the total that voted in 2016 voted early. But if you know people who didn't, encourage, not discourage them. Encourage them that there is still time for them to vote. 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. tomorrow. It'll be interesting to see. Polls are all over the place. All the experts that you talk to, all the different things that you hear and see. I saw a tracker poll this morning that suggested that majority of those who voted early, or 65% of those who voted early in these national data polls that they find, that it was for Biden. But then when they were talking to and tracking people who were going to vote on election day, it was a larger Trump turnout, and saying that the Tuesday turnout could sway things in a different direction. I hope the expectation that you have is not that tomorrow at 7 o'clock that you're going to know who the winner is in this election. Now, it's very possible by 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock at night that you may know who won the race for your local sheriff, or who won in the constable's race, or the commissioner's race, or the city council race. But in the presidential election, the notion that it's over on the 3rd, it has never been. It has never been. Everything that's ever happened, historically speaking, within the last, at least in my lifetime when I've been working, and I've worked a lot of elections, it's never done, it's never finalized on the day of the general election. Now, are there determinations made? Are there projections made based on, current trends or the number of votes that have been cast? You bet. And there will be. But I don't think anybody's going to jump out on a limb tomorrow night and try to make a prediction in the presidential election. Because A, there's too much at stake, and B, there are too many votes coming in. And it's going to be one of those things that you're going to have votes coming in late. You're going to have people, in some states, they don't even start counting absentee ballots or mail-in ballots until the day of the election. In Texas, we count them earlier, so you have a running total. But in some states, it won't start. So the notion that it will all be done by tomorrow night is not a historically accurate notion, because it hasn't been. Now, we've talked about it like it was done, but historically, go look. Historically, these counts have gone on far beyond, some of them weeks beyond, before they can actually finalize the count. And if you look back, you'll notice that there is a date that they come out and say, this is the count, this is the actual number, but sometimes we've known a lot earlier. But not likely to happen tomorrow night, really early. All right, so let's jump in, see what's happening. KFDM.com, first stop on the internet. A couple of notes this morning. I know it's a little late for this, but I hope you noticed BISD school buses not running today after one of the staff members at the transportation department there tested positive for COVID. My question is, if they're not running today, would you expect them to run tomorrow? I mean, I don't know how long, is the plan to quarantine these individuals, because apparently a lot of them came into contact. They say that they're doing it out of an abundance of caution, and that they will hopefully be able to get back up and running tomorrow. My suggestion would be, if you've got kids who ride the buses, though, in the Beaumont School District, I'd keep an eye on this story to see where we're going. We'll update the story, obviously, later in the day. But they did not run this morning. And the other was that because of that derailment in Mauriceville, here it is right here, Mauriceville Middle School and Elementary School will not be open today. Man, that's that train derailment we were talking about on Thursday. Much better view of what's involved there, and you can imagine why it takes so long to pick all that up. So anyway, they're saying they've got 2 more cars that have some hazardous materials they're still cleaning up. So they're asking all the kids in the elementary and the middle school to still do virtual school, all right, online, but not to physically go to the building. And if the kids ride the bus to go to the high school, that was also a problem as well. So we'll continue. And there are a few folks that still haven't been able to get back into their houses because they're saying it's still a danger, it's still a problem. So we'll continue watching that story as well. We were talking about early voting. Here you go. Early voting numbers in Jefferson County, way beyond expectations, as they have been across most of the country. So that should not be too much of a surprise to anyone, I wouldn't think, at this point. So lots of stories to go out there. If you want to read them, you certainly can. Let's also note this one. I thought this was kind of, I didn't see this one prior to today, but it says State Rep Dade Phelan, who of course represents Southeast Texas, files to run for the state house. And there's a picture of Mr. Phelan there on the right. And State Representative, a Beaumont Republican, as you can see, filed Sunday evening to run for Texas House Speaker. He confirmed to the Texas Tribune. Phelan is the chair of the House State Affairs Committee. A lot of people don't realize that. I'm not sure people, and why this is, I think maybe for some reason we've been directed that way in our thinking, but we don't pay attention to state politics the way we do national politics. A lot of people don't even know who their state representative is, if you ask them. But aren't they the people that affect more laws that really are of interest to you when you get right down to it? The laws that will affect your city, your county, your state, as opposed to those federal laws that affect you. But yet, again, we seem to have more interest in national than we do in state. Also, a really interesting article, let me get this out of the way, in the Dallas Morning News. This is a really interesting article by Gromer Jeffers Jr. It says 3 questions that will determine Tuesday's election outcomes in the state of Texas. You should go and read it. I mean, it's just one of those things that if you're into this and you want to go, like, what's the composition of the electorate? Who's voting and who's not voting? You know, that will affect not just the presidential race, that'll affect also Senate races here in the state of Texas. Will suburban voters ditch Republicans? That's another question. And can Republicans hold Tarrant County, which is Fort Worth? But 3 questions, and then he kind of dives into the answers as well. And here's one of those things that I don't know, that should we be nervous about this? Should we be anxious about this? USA Today, stores brace for post-election unrest and the possibility of violence, damage to businesses after presidential results. Could that happen no matter who wins? I think a lot of us are going into the 3rd day of November anxious for a lot of reasons. Anxious because, we hear all these stories. You wonder what happens. How's this going to go? Is it going to get worse before it gets better? Is no matter who wins, are people going to be, people are going to be angry. People are going to be upset. They will be. It's how they react to that will be seen on the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and everything else. All right, I'm going to leave you today because I got things to do, and I know that you do too, so I don't want to keep you really long. One is, you're going to start asking, what did you forget to wash your face? What is it? No, it's part of something called No Shave November. We've been doing it on the morning show for years. We'll do it for a couple of years. We'll skip a year. Well, this year it's back. It's about raising awareness for men's cancer issues. October is historically women's breast cancer awareness. November is men's cancer awareness, and there are a lot of different cancers that we need to know about. None of us probably can say we have not been touched by some form of cancer. I will tell you straight up, I lost my brother to Hodgkin's lymphoma, and it's easy for me to say I'll do this, but it may be hard for you to watch, but it's going to be happening. So I'm just going to give you a heads up. It's not as hard to look at as Halloween. I can't believe I'm going to show this, but I am going to show this to you because it's a good example of the things we do for love. I love my grandkids. I love to show them a good time. I like for them to come to my house and enjoy being here, and we enjoy each other's company. So they love Halloween. They're big into Halloween. So they came over. Actually, what happened, we decided this year we would not have trick-or-treat. They were not going to go trick-or-treat. They were going to come to our house, and we were going to have a Halloween party. So the wife and I, along with some of the kids, put together a haunted house. And we went all out this year, and we put it in the backyard. So anyway, here's a look at the grandkids, the grandsons. So they're ready, but it wouldn't be right if Grandpa and Grandma, which they don't call me that, but if we didn't do the same thing. So there's Dan in his Halloween costume as the aging rocker. All right? Yeah, all in, tights, boots, yeah, the works. But what a good time was had by the kids as they came over. We had all the old traditional haunted house things. Remember those? We got the spaghetti and put it in a bowl and covered it up so with a slit so they'd put their hands in. And then I got a little tomato sauce and put it in there so it was all, yeah, they didn't like that very much, reaching in there. And then they pulled their hand out and it was red. I said, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. It's just blood. But anyway, the things we do for love, right? And again, it was a good time. So maybe that will put facial hair in perspective. I don't know. All right, I got to run. I've got things to do. I know you do too. And again, I want to tell you, as I do every single day, I appreciate your time. And I also want to tell you there are various ways that you can follow us, all right? Facebook, and KFDM News. Twitter, mine is Morning TV Dan. And YouTube. You can go to the channel there. It's Dan's at Home. Dan's at Home YouTube channel. You can subscribe and you'll be able to see every one of our updates and you'll know it's coming right there on the YouTube channel. Again, thank you for your time today. You go out and make it a terrific but safe day. And we will look forward to seeing you bright and early tomorrow morning. Speaking of election coverage, we will start ours bright and early tomorrow morning. We'll have live reports from all the various polling, not all, but many of the polling places across Southeast Texas. Then we'll begin election results very early tomorrow afternoon, 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6. But you can't expect any numbers really until probably 8, 9 o'clock. Well, at least 7 because that's when the polls close. Right? So even those early voting numbers are not going to come in until later on. But as soon as they start arriving, you'll be able to see them, KFDM and fox4beaumont.com. We'll have you covered. All right? So again, go out and make it a terrific day. We'll look forward to talking to you again very, very soon.